Hello and welcome. It has been a long while, and I'm really glad to be back and talking with everyone, making this update video, which is long overdue. There's a lot I want to say and cover in this video, so let's just jump right in. We'll start with what's going on with Amber Roots. So my last Amber Roots update in this channel was in August 10th of 2022. It's over a year ago. That is really crazy and kind of hard to stomach. If you're on the Paper Mouse Games Discord, you already know what's coming here, and even if you're not, you probably have some idea. The truth is that I'm stepping away from Amber Roots and putting it on hold indefinitely. This was an incredibly difficult decision to make, as when I started the YouTube channel to start showcasing Amber Roots and start gaining a following for it, I was already deep into development. So this has been an incredibly difficult decision to make and to come to terms with. I really wish I had made this update video months ago. The truth is that I announced this in Discord a while back, and I wish I had made this video then, because now it kind of feels like I have to relive this decision twice, and it's not fun, it's not great. But I think it's the best decision for me to just keep moving forward. The reason I'm doing this is because Amber Roots, again, was in development for years, and it was my first really big project that I wanted to complete. As a result, I learned a ton about game development and myself, and my skills and my weaknesses. So I can't say I regret doing it, but also scope creep was very much a problem with Amber Roots. I found that one of my favorite parts about game development is making systems and how those systems interact. And I found myself using Amber Roots as a sort of playground for myself to make systems that I thought would be cool and try to make them work within this somewhat simple RPG. You know, one thing led to another, and it just became this really bloated project with systems that just really didn't need to be in there. I think the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, was I posted a short video on YouTube in between the tutorials that I made about 2D billboarding that was a sneak peek at a procedural terrain generator that I was building. That my plan at the time when I started learning that was to implement that into Amber Roots and make it more of an open world thing. And after I finished the video and I sort of finished coming together with this prototype of the procedural generation, I just kind of looked at it and I said to myself, this is nuts. This is so far beyond the scope of what I should be doing for a solo project. And from there, I just really started to rethink whether Amber Roots was what I should continue working on, because that wasn't the only example of scope creep within the game. Eventually, I came to the decision that I should be working on something smaller as my first released title, which is really difficult. Of course, that's the advice that every game developer gives you, make something small, and I do think it's good advice, but I also think it's hard for me because I think the games that I tend to love and that I tend to play don't always fall into that category. And so coming up with different ideas for small games was always really difficult for me. And I'm sure a lot of people out there have this issue, and that's why a lot of us, you know, we will go onto a forum or onto Reddit or YouTube and we want to learn how to make a game like Skyrim or an MMO as indie developers. And some people pull it off. They do. Very talented individuals, very driven people, they can do it. But a lot of us are left in this unfinished game limbo where we bit off more than we could chew, not because necessarily we didn't want to make a smaller game, but because it just didn't feel like the thing we were most passionate about. And I do think that there's something to be said about the level of influence that passion plays into making a game. So, you know, I'm just trying to be very open here about what my thought process was with Amber Roots and what it is now and what it was when I decided to put it on hold, because I think that a story like this about sort of failing to make the game that you set out to make also has a lot of value. You know, we all love hearing the stories about successful indie game devs who didn't get to make their dream game, or who found that they made a really stable career out of this thing that they're very passionate about. But I think it's also important to be real and talk about not just the sort of economical and time failures that something like this can have, but also the emotional side of things and how hard it can be to come to terms with this. In many ways, when I look at Amber Roots even now, there is still a part of me that feels like I failed. Like I set out to do this thing and I wasn't able to do it. And I think that's one of the reasons why I also put off making this video. It sort of felt embarrassing. It felt like I was coming out and saying, I can't do it, which sort of is what it is. And coming to terms with that was hard. And I'm sure that that's something that a lot of game developers experience and feel. And I just thought it would be valuable to hear somebody's very specific and individual perspective on it. Overall, I still feel like it was the right decision to put it on hold. I wish I had made this video sooner, but it is what it is. I don't regret working on Amber Roots at all. Like I said, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about game development, and that stuff will serve me forever. So I'm really glad I did it, but I think it's time to move on. I'm really sorry to anyone that was looking forward to playing Amber Roots. I hope that someday I can revisit the idea, but hopefully people will still be excited to go on a new journey with me and start something new from scratch, which I'm pretty excited about. I didn't start my game dev journey on YouTube. I was already really deep into it when I started the YouTube channel, and I think it could be fun to explore new game ideas and new ways to learn game development here on YouTube from the beginning with everybody. So moving on to the second topic that I want to cover in this video, and that's about Unity itself. Now, anybody who's a game dev and familiar with Unity probably already knows that Unity has been through a roller coaster over the last, I think 2 weeks. I'm not really going to go into a bunch of detail about what happened and the pricing changes and all of that. Mostly, I just want to cover what this means for me and what my plan is moving forward. This whole thing has given me a lot to think about, and I just wanted to be open and transparent about that. So just to quickly summarize my feelings on Unity's pricing changes, I think the final changes are not bad. They're just really complicated and convoluted. The original pricing changes that they made are terrible, but what they finally landed on I think is fair. I would have preferred something like what Unreal does, which is just way more straightforward, even if it's a little bit more money, but it is what it is. I think my current real issue is that I really dislike the way they went about this, and the fact that they sort of, in a very sketchy move, took down their terms of service ahead of time before the announcement and then just kind of changed things up. It makes it feel like less of a fumble and more of a calculated move. Now, just to clarify one thing, because the timing of this video might seem kind of funny, the decision to put Amber Roots on hold was made months ago and has nothing to do with all of the drama that went down with Unity. Another thing that's kind of funny is that a few months ago, I think it was around May or June, I thought to myself, it'd be really good to experiment with other game engines, whether it was Unreal or Godot or something else. And I didn't do it at the time because it just felt like a big investment, and I didn't really have a good reason to do it. But now, in light of all of these things that have happened, I do feel like, at least for me personally, not having all of my eggs in one basket seems like a really good idea. Taking all of the game development principles that I've learned using Unity and learning some other engines, some alternatives, seems really good. Especially because you never know, you might find something in an engine that gives you ideas for a game, or the type of game you're building might work better in one engine over another, and having that flexibility of switching engines just feels like a good skill to have. Also, as I mentioned, when I started the YouTube channel, I was already deep into the development of Amber Roots in Unity, and I think the idea of documenting the process from start to finish of something, even if it's just the learning journey or prototypes and not a specific game, could be really cool. My current plan is to start with Godot, which is open source and free to use, the best kind of licensing that you could want for anything, and try to make some 2D games. Simple things that wouldn't take very long to develop, hopefully. Of course, that probably won't end up playing out that way, but I'll do my best. And if I'm ready to move into 3D for whatever reason, seeing what Godot has to offer, comparing it to Unreal Engine, and weighing out if it's time to learn Unreal Engine or not, which I do also want to learn. I also think it'll be good to have something very stable and ongoing that I can upload to the YouTube channel. So just documenting my progress as I learn these engines rather than focusing on making one specific type of game, I think could be really good. Now, I'm not really like boycotting Unity or anything. I'm not saying that I'll never use it again, but between all the changes and the fact that Amberooz is now on hold and I'm not working on one particular project, it just seems like the perfect time to expand my skill set and try to use other engines. So that's what I'll be doing in the next few weeks. Learning Godot, hopefully having some cool stuff to show. And yeah, it's good to be back. I'm glad to be updating everyone on what's been going on, and I look forward to sharing more content with everyone. And as always, thank you so much for watching and for staying with the channel.